Good morning, or good afternoon. Let's commence the press conference of the official section film Sauvage, and we have the director Cédric Kahn, the actors Jules Plemanik and Robert Dupré. We have Cassina Lassagne, the film Le Son, and two protagonists of the real story, Rassemble and La Fontaine and Ocari Fortin. So therefore, what they're eagerly awaiting for is to listen to your questions. So therefore, first question. Please, first question. Yes, right over there. Hi, good morning. As it's a real story, I would like to know how you approached it and how much fiction and how much reality is in what you've finally shown us on the screen. Well, initially, the beginning is the real story of Sayena Okwari and his father, the mother and their elder brother. This is the source of inspiration. That's the reality. And I followed their story. I read the newspapers and I read their book and the testimonies. And I've also listened to what they've told me, what I have been able to capture from their personality over time and their work with the scriptwriter and the set and location and the actors was portrayed, but we based ourselves upon reality. And then obviously the story went, or the tale went to fiction and cinema. It's very difficult to establish percentages, but it would be 60-40. 40% and 60%. Well, 40 of acting and 60% reality. I'm talking under their control here because, listen, they're controlling me what I'm saying because they could best probably talk about their own story. I confirm what you're saying. Yes, the percentage is correct, I would say. I've taken freedoms or the liberty to do things. Every time, Roberto Zucco, for example, I followed the facts. I didn't invent anything for the film, but here I've given myself certain freedom and vis-a-vis and the acting side of things. I presented the project this way. It's my own interpretation, shall we say, of their story. Further questions? If no further questions, I would like to know what attracted, over here on the panel, what attracted me to the story when you realized that there was a film there, and how did you decide to take it on board? The elements of the events and the story I thought were incredible. It's a story of two parents, mother and father, who struggle to achieve the custody of the children. The context of the story is extraordinary. I asked myself a lot of questions about the possibility of choosing children that were so young, and the choice they took of the life chosen by their father and the two boys is an extraordinary life. Another cinematographic element for me is the escape in a country such as France, which is a small country. How can you disappear with two young boys? How can you educate them and make sure their health is okay and escape? They tell less in their story, the story in the book. I thought it was fascinating, and I also think it's fascinating for cinema audiences. I would like to know about that world that helps them people to survive. They give them work. That world, does that 60% and that 40%, is that invented or not? The world out in the countryside, out in the mountains, in the forests. This is a question for the boys. The Fortin brothers, there's been a lot of solidarity and a lot of friendship linked to their cause. The cause was a just cause, and that's why they helped us. But would you like to know what's the motivation of the people that helped them? Well, I think that we lived over those 11 years as a very powerful and experience where we lived through many vicissitudes. Not only did we live in the forest or out in the mountains, as you could imagine, we were also in the real world with many people from many different social classes. And the film doesn't tell the entire story. You can't condense 11 years into one single film, but specifically how solidarity of people works. Well, we were okay, and that was our choice. We chose to continue to live that way instead of coming back to our mother and to leave our father. We didn't want to leave behind that lifestyle because that's the way our parents decided to get us involved in and educated from the outset. I don't know how to explain this. I could include there are different levels in the solidarity provided by people. There were people who felt very moved with the ideology. They agreed with the father, and they thought that they had to protect him. And there were people who thought, the truth be said, that this man was the victim of an injustice, and as he was a marginal, left to one side, the justice wasn't helping him, and the people that helped them didn't have the same motivations. There were also a girl who fell in love with the father. One of the things that drew my attention, and I'm not too sure whether Akwai and Cheyenne, well, a lot of women helped. Even they were mothers and they had their own children. There was a lot of solidarity towards the father and the two sons. These women weren't identified in favor of the struggle of the mother of the two boys, and that's quite strange. And also, I think they lived in a world in which you're not in touch with the police at all. Before being outlawed, for example, there are people that live in the Sauvage Ariège in very mountainous and forest to the wayside places. These are people, or a kind of people, who don't trust the police and who don't get in touch with the police. That's why it's easier for them to hide. We can't separate both worlds. We can't say that it's a marginal left to one side world, because these are people that live within the system. They're people we can find anywhere. We can't say that it was a left to one side and isolated and outside the system. We live in the system and we experience the system. Or there's a great range of experiences which is quite rich in these marginal classes that are complementary. How can you explain solidarity of people towards you? Well, these are the impulses of people that want to help us because they believe that the cause is just, and they thought that we had chosen to do what we did. People felt like helping us, the people that surrounded us and who we met. Another element, yes, it's kindness on their behalf, and there's another element which perhaps for them is a bit more difficult to see because you can't judge this today. Their father is very charismatic. He speaks very well. He presents his ideas very well. And he was able to create an empathy towards his cause thanks to his natural charisma. And that's true. Yes, that is. The question for the director, there's a film that you ask a lot of issues, as you explained. For example, what happens vis-a-vis education and their lifestyle. At the beginning, when the film starts, I thought that it was going to be a complete defense to defend that the father has the same rights as the mother. But nevertheless, throughout the film, you don't have a specific, concrete point of view to a certain extent. You've become quite neutral. You've tried to tell the story as it occurred. Was that a choice that was clear from the outset, or did you address that you could take a position or a stance? And as regards to the two boys who lived this experience, whether you really believe that at 7 years of age, you had to go along with your father because of how he was, or do you think it's the right age to make choices? No, when you're 6 and 7 years of age, we chose to go with him, and we knew what the consequences were. That was instinctive to being outlawed. That was only supposed to last 8 months. So therefore, we had to continue to decide to stay with our father. It took 11 years because in France, if you're not of age, you don't have a right to to say your peace of mind vis-a-vis the courts, and that's one of the problems of justice with vis-a-vis family members, especially listening to the children. We lived in an outlawed situation to live what we wanted to live, those experiences we wanted to live. Did you regret having lived like that at all? Would you have liked another choice or a different choice? Knowing the consequences of that lifestyle? No, not at all. If I had to choose again today, I'd do the same thing, because it's something that has contributed a lot to me. It's been an experience which is a marvelous experience. It's been a difficult life, but I feel much more stronger because of it today. And every year, our father always used to say and repeat it, you can choose, you can choose, you can choose to go back to your mother at any given moment. And we decided what we wanted to do at all times, and that's true. Perhaps this has not been seen too much in the media, and it's a pity, but such is the case. And in order to answer your question, I didn't take an ideological stance. And the ideology belongs to each character. I show that father, well, I present the ideas of the father and the contradictions of the mother, contradictions of the adolescents as well, albeit they've left that in their adolescence. It was much more complex to accept that lifestyle. They wanted to live a more regular, shall we say, or normal life. What I was interested in was the intimate trajectory, shall we say, of the characters. That's the great virtue of cinema, to delve into the depth of what is most intimate, to touch the internal conflicts of each and every person. What I was interested to know is how these boys grew up in that lifestyle that they had chosen. And I continue to ask myself whether they truly were able to choose, and I address this in the film, so they construct their personality with that omnipresent father and omni-absent mother. I go beyond the testimony itself. This is my interpretation of that book. I wanted to focus on what the children felt, the young children, and then slowly but surely as they grew. Hi, first of all, congratulations for the film, and especially to the director, to all of you, but especially the director. Thank you. My question is, one is for you and the two main actors. Help me, correct me, both actors, it's the first feature film that they've made, if I'm not mistaken. And so therefore, in any case, could you explain, or tell me, what was your decision in choosing those actors? I think that the work they've done is quite interesting and very good as well. And for the actors, for both of them, well, I chose them because they're good. That's my answer. They're very good actors. Romain, it's his first film. Gilles has already made some films, but this is his first leading role, with a lot of scenes, with so many scenes. We needed four very good, the small and the adolescents. I knew that the roles were very intense and quite difficult to portray. I had models in my mind, and obviously we needed boys who were exceptional in order to play this role. Boys outside the regular, and they were chosen because of their physical resemblance between the younger and the elderly, the older boys, and because of their talent. But they could talk about it. Well, we've been able. Could they tell us their experience? Yes, of working in this feature film. As Cedric has just mentioned, it's my first film. I've never done any theater or films, or I received an email for the casting one day, and I turned up, and they chose me. That was a great coincidence. For me, it was a marvelous experience. I lived it I've given everything I have in me, my heart and my soul. I'm not too sure how to say this. I've enjoyed enormously to be able to have this experience. I enjoyed it very much, and also it made me refocus upon myself, because My role is almost, it corresponds to me, so without focus in myself almost 100%, and I've learned a lot. It's been a great experience for me. I was a bit afraid because I was small when I made any previous film. It's the first role as an adolescent that I was being offered, and it's very complicated because apart from this, they're the real characters and they're here. And I discovered this story by reading the script, and Cedric, who has directed this very well as well, and because it's quite complicated to get under the skin of a person that you don't know but exists, and he's explained us very well how we had to portray those roles or characters. Roman gives a good definition of my link to the actors. I expect more than a performance. I want an actor to go to give his heart and soul, that to give his whole performance and acting. The demand of the audiences in cinema theaters is greater and greater, so therefore we require that reality should transcend the movie itself, the film itself, and Cedric has advised us very well throughout the film. There have been very difficult scenes. Like in everything in life, there are days that things go very well and some days things don't go that well, but as regards to myself, I've had a fantastic experience. We don't usually see Mathieu Kassovitz too much in cinema. I think he was fantastic in this film. Did you think about him for the leading actor? Did you think he was the ideal actor for the role? Yes, I thought of him right early on. He doesn't make too many films now, and that's why we didn't ask him immediately. But when we went to meet him, the truth is we couldn't find the ideal actor, and the shooting time was in. He said yes very quickly. He was fascinated and he was impressed by the film, and he identified the story, and he identified himself very well with that man who was quite radical, outside the system, who goes all the way to the end with a certain amount of violence and rage and anger against the system. And I think Mathieu likes this subject matter, and I think that's what really makes his performance so good. He really lives it. That's what Roman was saying. He gives a lot of himself and introduces that into the character. It's a pity that he doesn't. Mathieu Kassovitz makes more films because he's a formidable actor. It's a role that fits him perfectly. I completely agree with you. Further questions, please? Yes, in the second row. Hi, congratulations for the film. I loved it, and my question is for the director and for the protagonists of the story. First of all, did you not consider important to include in the film a re-encounter with the elder brother, who's a figure who's almost left to one side at the beginning? It's given importance is placed upon it, and then it's forgotten. But the main actors, what was it, meeting your brother again later on after all that time? What do you mean at the end of the film? At the end of the film, when they see their mother again, the inspector says their mother and brothers there waiting to see them. Obviously, there's a lot of drama. I mean, in the film, when I was an adolescent, I was very passionate, but when I met my mother and my elder brother was tough and hard, but it was very relaxed. It's not like in the film, okay? And with our elder brother, well, with our mother and our elder brother, it was a very long re-encounter and a reunion. We got up at 6 o'clock in the morning at a police station without having slept for the previous 2 nights. And that reunion with our brother was very simple and easy, and also with my mother, yes. Yes, it was a very calm and relaxed scene. It was very tranquil. There are moments in which after the things weren't so relaxed. That's why if you refer to that scene, the ending, that reunion with the mother and the brother, I knew it was quite chaotic. There were moments that were quite violent, others which were much more relaxed. There were ups and downs in the relationship because the father was in jail as well. And I wanted to summarize in the last scene of the film what really happened over those 2 or 3 months. I think that the mother had a lot of contained rage within her and a lot of sorrow and pain that was accumulated. It was very difficult for them to take that on, the suffering of their mother. That reunion was difficult at the beginning because, first of all, their father was in jail, and our points of view were quite divergent vis-a-vis the story. Each of us has lived it in a different way. And in order to answer to that of the elder brother, I think it's very important that the elder brother to be seen at the beginning of the film, because I have interpreted the story myself. And what suffers him is how that family is torn apart, and undoubtedly he doesn't want to lose his father or mother. I think it's cruel as well. Not everybody thinks the way I do, but the problem is to have separated these 3 brothers or boys. But there's something that's very good in the film, and that is, we all agree with this. I think my mother published a book as well. We published another book. We don't have the same versions of what took place, but in the film, our mother and our elder brother and us, we completely agree. We've gotten together vis-a-vis this film, and I think this is very positive. It's an anecdote for the audience, but the fact that all of them at the end, in the final credits, they all appear and they accepted to appear all together, the members of the entire family. They accepted it. The 5 of them, I think, for me, it was a great satisfaction to gather them all together and to see them on the screen. What about the synthesis of my adolescence at the end of the film was not easy because I was of age, and my younger brother wasn't. And that's the moment in which Roman plays my role on a bridge that it seems that I'm going to commit suicide, but that's not true, okay? I like to live too much. And the last scene, final scene with my mother, where it's a little bit different, but I'm very happy with this film. Cedric has made a very good, directed the film fantastically, and it's a childhood which is parallel childhood in nature, in a very left to one side place with your father, where you've got to keep a secret. This doesn't mean that you can't be happy and to construct yourself and build yourself as a person. Plus, we've had our father as a teacher every morning. Every morning we were at a school at home, and then in the afternoon we lived a lot of complementary things that can't be seen in the film. Our life was quite rich and a lot of experiences, and I would do it again, undoubtedly, if I compare it to the project that our mother had for us. A researcher and an engineer, but they agreed in the way they were going to educate us at the beginning. Just like when they chose the Indian names that they gave us. When we were very young, with the nomadic lifestyle we had, the fact is we enjoyed it very much. They agreed at the beginning to sort of have us live that life. And we have been brought up as adults, and we are what we are. And this film narrates all of that, and I hope that the vision of things and the possibilities can be opened up even more. In our current society, where we don't really know what it is to be living outside the system, we don't know whether they're hippies, we don't know those people and who they are. It's a summary and a synthesis, but I'm glad that this film has come out and been seen by the public now, and thank you very much. And congratulations to both the actors too, by the way. Hi, congratulations to all of you, and especially to your father. We'd like to know whether in reality he left the jail because the mother her denunciation or the report she filed to her part, she'd taken it away, and then to accompany your father, the mother, did she regret the decision that she took on that first day of trying to keep you in shared custody? No, I'm not too sure that she might think differently now, but my father only spent 2 months in jail because we defended him in every way possible. And also we found a lot of witnesses who had met us when we were lived as outlaws to give the testimony of what we had lived through. And he got out of jail because he shouldn't have been in jail at all. He did it because of the love of his children, his love for his children. We lived for a year and a half in the home of our mother, and we went to school a little, and then all of a sudden, as the film starts, we go to the neighbor's house, and we spent a year, and we lived in a flat with our mother, going to school, which is something which is quite regular and normal, but it's a type of style completely different to all the contrary to what we'd lived through before. And she preferred to reinsert themselves in society. She wanted to impose that life upon us, and that's what we don't accept. But because of the love of her sons, it was Christmas in 1997. We went with our father. I was anorexic. I used to be very ill, psychosomatic illnesses, and when he didn't tell us that we may come back whenever we wanted, I thought it was quite obvious that I had to go with him, and I thank him always. He's always addressed the possibility of coming back to him. He never prevented. He's a very respectable father in that respect. And obviously he didn't want to deprive us of our mother. It was not easy for him to live for all of that time. But in France, at a family justice level, and the legal proceedings are very slow, things aren't too fair, and as he was condemned, we couldn't take a step back. We couldn't go back on what we'd said and done. The problem is he hid us away from them. Many things weren't said, and that's why there was problems with the law. Sorry. I meant all the contrary. You backed your father, whether your mother has regretted her choice. Yes. Yes, no, we have understood this. Yes, but that's the answer that our mother should give. I don't think that she's regretted her initial decision. She has maintained her position over that period of 11 years. If my two parents would have been a bit more flexible, we had never have come into that situation or gone that far. That's one of the sad parts, the sad side to the story. The truth is, she didn't want to take away the filing of the report. He could have gone to jail for 5 years, and it was €200,000 fine at the end of the film. In the last scene, we got together and we told each other how our lives were, and all of a sudden, very quickly, everything's over. Let's start from scratch. But for this man should not continue in jail, because we had decided upon this. Obviously, it's hard for you, Mum, you've got to support us, otherwise we could never get along very well at all. You've got to take away that report, because he shouldn't be in jail. And she said, I'm not too sure whether that's possible. And she asked a symbolic euro, and with the media pressure that we generated over those 2 months, he left. And the same afternoon that the court case took place, he'd spent 2 months, and he came out on probation. Cedric, it seems that he already had an answer to that question. Well, I have talked to their mother, and I don't think that she's regretted. She's never understood the violence of her gesture, but she's the one should explain the whys and whereabouts. As regards to the father's sentence in jail, I think this is something objective, and the clemency of the judges has been the clemency of the two boys have defended their father enormously, and that's had an influence upon the judge's sentence, and they continue to defend him enormously nowadays as well. We defended him. The truth is, we are witnesses of the life that we've lived. We are the testimony. Our testimony defends him. We claim that life. We claim whether what we've lived with him, his education, what he has transmitted to us, our testimony defends him completely. But it's more than a testimony than just a defense position. And To continue to talk about the same thing, I would like to ask that both brothers, excuse me, the actors, the false brothers. The question is for the real brothers. Excuse me for the actors because your portrayal is fantastic. You're very promising actors, but it's very little to see the real heroes of the story, shall we say. But the film is a very good film. I think it's okay. But you've come back to live your life backwards, like as if it was psychotherapy. Has it served as a catharsis? Have you understood things differently, having seen the film? And the mother and father, have they revealed new elements in the film, like latent images, and the film is revealing, and this is the virtue of cinema. It's well shown, and the film has moved me quite a lot. But we'd also had written a book of 460 pages, which tells the entire story of our experience. That introspection, we did it already before the film was premiered. Cédric perhaps has a good answer as regards to this question. The last time I saw the film, how did we live through? What did I say? Well, I said, yes, you said, if you had have gone 30 kilometers away, things wouldn't have happened the way they did. That is to say, he went very far away to the other end of France. He didn't go to some place which was just around the corner. No, it's a classic conflict, isn't it? It's a geographical conflict. It's the impossibility to have shared custody because both parents are very far away in their positions from each other. So justice has to provide custody, has to decide to give it to the mother or father. In France, such is the case, the mother usually has the custody initially. That's what justice says and the law says. This can be discussed, but that's the struggle of Xavier Fortin, the father. It's a story which is quite it's typical, and the law gives gives the custody to the mother, and most typical is the reaction of the father that doesn't accept the judge's decision, and he feels that he has been hindered, and he acts. The people feel much more victimized and they subject themselves, but he sees that the boys were suffering, his children were suffering. And I was saying that my father saw that his own sons were suffering. What this generates is the extreme position of our parents, our mother and father. I would like to add something that perhaps has nothing to do with your question, but it's the lifestyle that we've chosen. That's a very important point that I like to deal with, and that is the side of coming close to nature with much more earthly values in connection with reality or real life, and not at all superficial. That's how it leaves the, shall we say, the current regular or normal environment. I chose this being in contact with nature, closer to truth, something much closer to human beings, nature. I completely agree with you, and I've lived it that way. For me, nature is not separated from me. When I am in the garden and when I go to pick up a lettuce, I feel a great affinity. We form part of nature. We're not different, or neither are we different to nature. And these values, we wouldn't have been able to acquire them at school. We would have learned other things. But in a classroom, you can't learn to grow crops in a garden, but we've learned many other things, not only to work in an orchard and grow things in an orchard. Yes, another question? How did you work with the young actors? Because they are marvelous. They're two marvelous kids. I love working with young kids and adolescents. It's not a restriction or a limitation for me. I thought that the ideal situation was for the shooting of the film to be the least technical possible, and give them a sort of freedom, and also for the adult actors. I think it's important, the quality of the performance with with a minimum level of restrictions or limitations. In the film, there were very few differences between the moments when we shot and when we didn't shoot. We could have been shooting and filming all day long, because there wasn't a separation between both moments.
¿Nadie más?
Anyone else? Any further questions? Yes? I think the film is presented here in the festival for the first time, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I would like to know when it's going to be premiered in cinema theaters in France and whether it's going to go abroad. The premiere is on the 29th of October in France, and we started the promo and the press campaign. And abroad, I have no idea. And this is just the beginning of the journey. Today is going to be the first time a public audience, shall we say, sees it for the first time. I'm sure of that. Okay, if there aren't any further questions, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.